Okay, this is from the book Poor Man's Way to Prevent Dementia, my most recent book, and we're going to do chapter 16 now about fluoride. Fluoride is a brain toxin. It's a major neurotoxin. You want to avoid it as best you can. It has a minimal benefit to teeth for preventing cavities, but that's pretty minimal. It has major toxic effects on the human body. It increases your risk of cancer. It increases your risk of dementia. It lowers IQ, and it does a whole bunch of other bad things. It facilitates some chemicals getting into the brain, crossing the blood-brain barrier. One of the things you'll notice is lots of these neuropsychopharmaceutical drugs have fluoride on them. What is the other name for Prozac? Fluoxetine. That's for the fluoro in it, okay? What about those antibiotics, the quinolones? They're called fluoroquinolones. You know, it forms tight bonds that can increase the ability of things to get into the across the blood-brain barrier into the brain and cause brain damage. Okay, you can get fluoride aluminum complexes that contribute to causing brain damage. Here's the best book on fluoride. If you want it, this is a book that goes through all the studies on it. This guy, Dean Murphy, is a dentist, so he has a very detailed understanding of the effect it has on teeth and how it interacts with bone. It's an excellent book. That's one of my top 40 all-time greatest medical books, this book. And when you read it, you know, you'll just be like, I've read, by the way, like at least 4 books on fluoride. I was pretty interested in it. Okay, so the bottom line, you want to avoid it as best you can. It's a poison. It's used for rat poison, okay? Its benefit to the teeth is minimal, and that would only be a topical effect, certainly of no benefit to swallow it and ingest it. You know, this rat poison stuff. It inhibits glycolysis. It inhibits Krebs cycle. It inhibits the mitochondrial electron transport chain, so it lowers your energy. It increases your risk of cancer. Things that inhibit mitochondria are sometimes risk factors for cancer, of course. We talked about the metabolic theory of cancer and the transformation of a cell into becoming like an anaerobic bacteria because it has no mitochondrial function, okay? Here's another very good book about fluoride. This one's called The Aging Factor. Fluoride Accelerates Aging. This guy, Jan Yamuyanis, it's hard to pronounce his name, but he was a biochemist, very bright guy. He did a bunch of research on fluoride, including the studies that show that it increases the risk of cancer, which you'd expect it to do, given the fact it's such a destructive chemical for metabolism. Okay, it also can cause dish of the spine, diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis. That's when you get all the bony spurs, osteophytes on the spine, making it fused and stiff and brittle. You know, ischemia will do that, lack of blood flow, of course, and I think that's the most common cause. But fluoride is also a major contributor to this. They actually call it fluorosis of the spine. I see this stuff all day long, every day. What else does fluoride do? It'll increase the risk of autoimmune disease. Fluoride will substitute out for hydrogens and intercalate itself into your proteins, and it'll distort their shape, and then the immune system can form a response to them. It's called making the protein into a PAMPs. PAMPs means pathogen-associated molecular patterns. Okay, so something that now has a foreign appearance to the immune system such that it will form an immune response to it. So this is an important concept that you've got things, oh crap, I'm sorry I was partially covering up. I didn't realize I was partially covering up. Let me get up. Okay, so here is fluoride distorting the shape of the protein and turning it into PAMPs, pathogen-associated molecular patterns, recognized by the immune system as foreign, forming an autoimmune response. So fluoride is a chemical you ingest that can cause autoimmune disease. Glyphosate, glycine phosphate, switching out for glycine in proteins, that'll cause autoimmune disease. What are some other ones? So it can also substitute for glycine into your collagens and mess those up. So we talked about glyphosate, we talked about fluoride. What else can do it? You can also increase leaky gut. Aluminum increases the risk of leaky gut, so it'll do that. Fluoride contributes to leaky gut, and it kills bacteria, so it can kill your good gut bacteria. Sialic acids can do it from eating meat. That's another thing that can contribute to autoimmune disease. Okay. It's good to know because the main cause of autoimmune disease is leaky gut. But it's good to know all these other things so that you can avoid them too. Let's say, especially if you're not getting better after having tried to treat your leaky gut. Okay, DAMPs means you damage a protein and then it's recognized as foreign by the immune system. So DAMPs means damage-associated molecular patterns. A damaged protein recognized by the immune system. The immune system cleans up damaged cells, okay? And we talked about PAMPs, pathogen-associated molecular patterns. There's also things that occur, typically, let's say on a bacteria, for example, and those will be called MAMPs, M-A-M-P-S, and that would be microbial-associated molecular patterns, for example. Okay, here's a couple papers about it, and here's one showing that fluoride has a tendency to be concentrated in soy. So soy will have a tendency to have high amounts of fluoride in it. So great. You get the toxicity of soy, which is goitrogenic, estrogenic, and on top of it, it'll often concentrate fluoride. Great. This is something that lowers IQ, increases the risk of dementia, increases the risk of cancer, increases the risk of autoimmune disease, increases the risk of leaky gut. You'll often see fluoride on pharmaceuticals, like, fluoride on your fluoxetine, your Prozac, okay? Helps it to cross the blood-brain barrier. Same thing with fluoride on the antibiotics, the quinolones, fluoroquinolones. But that also makes them more neurotoxic. Okay, here's another paper. Fluoride will sometimes concentrate aluminum, and so that's also neurotoxin. Okay, I mean the soy will concentrate aluminum in some cases. And the book by Adams, Health Ranger guy about food forensics, was good too, talking about these types of contaminants. Okay, so that's all I've got on fluoride for now, but I think the point was made pretty clear. It's a major neurotoxin. It's directly neurotoxic, lowering IQ, thus increasing your risk of dementia, increasing your risk of autoimmune disease. You want to avoid it. What can you do to avoid it? Try to live in a place that doesn't put fluoride in their water. Most municipal water filtration places do. Try to get a well water, but test the water first. Make sure it doesn't have fluoride in it. You can remove it with reverse osmosis filters, like in the kitchen. You got to deal with hypoosmolarity a little bit, but I talked about that in a separate lecture. But I think reverse osmosis is a good approach. I think it's good to have a whole house carbon water filter. That gets rid of all the estrogenics and a lot of other toxic chemicals, takes the chlorine out of it, which you don't need once it's at your house. The new ion exchange filters, I don't know if they remove fluoride or not. They might. You can look that up. That's sort of a new thing. I don't have experience with it. Distillation does, but distillation makes water so hypoosmolar and it's so cumbersome that I wouldn't go down that path, but I can understand in some settings that might be useful. You've got to be careful about the hypoosmolarity. It's good to have a whole house carbon filter, removing again the carbon and the estrogenics. So anyways, hope that was helpful.